Welcome to the off-season edition of Giants Roundup. As you see, I have moved to a new place. I finally got the Wi-Fi turned on, so I didn't really get to do a formal farewell. This is kind of going to be a farewell for Giants Roundup. It is Saturday afternoon. Of course, you can follow on Twitter, join the Cruit and Kite page on Facebook, and most importantly, please be kind and hit that subscribe button. But yeah, this is moment. They did finish in fourth place with 73 wins, 89 losses. We'll do a little off-season chat here in a moment. Then we had the wild card game where Chicago lost to Milwaukee. Milwaukee is now all the way into the NLCS. Milwaukee, it will be an interesting situation to see what happens with the Brewers now that they are in the playoffs. So it'll be interesting to see. It looks like, though, we could see a manager who could be on the hot seat next year is Joe Maddon. And Joe Maddon could be a guy that could be available after the 2019 season. But they got bounced early in the first round, so they're gone. Oakland bounced by the Yankees. Then in your NLDS, you had the Braves and the Dodgers, and LA won that series in 4 games. You had the Brewers sweeping the Colorado Rockies. And then in the ALDS, you had Houston sweeping Cleveland. And, of course, you had Boston winning in 4 against the New York Yankees. Now here we are to the ALDS, the ALCS, and the NLCS. The Brewers have taken game 1 already in this best-of-7 series. The Dodgers are currently leading in the bottom of the 8th inning. But my prediction, as in terms of who I think is going to win that series, my edge would go to the Dodgers based on starting pitching. I unfortunately think it'll be the Dodgers in 6 games over the Milwaukee Brewers. And on the other side, you've got the Red Sox and the Astros. And I think that is going to be a 7-game series. You got Chris Sale, you've got Rick Porcello, David Price, Nathan Eovaldi. That's a pretty strong rotation for Boston. And on the flip side, you've got Lance McCullers Jr., you've got Garrett Cole, you've got Justin Verlander, you've got Dallas Keuchel. So this is going to be a 7-game series. I think it's going to be Boston in 7 games in that series. Give me a second here. I'm going to close up the window for a second. I can't really close this window, so this is going to be an issue. But yeah, for your World Series this year, it will likely be the Dodgers against the Red Sox. That will be your World Series. We shall see what happens there. Now on to the Giants offseason. Giants finished 4th at 73 and 89. And, of course, Bobby Evans was let go. They are still in the middle of the search process for a new general manager. And right now, Ben Cherington said no, the Giants can't talk to David Stearns. They are currently looking at Shane Bloom. Matt Arnold's another option. Josh Burns. And one that I kind of like, Kim No. These are kind of some interesting ones. Mike Elias is another I think Mike Elias would be a great option since he is an analytical-minded GM. And also in other news, it looks like Adam Wainwright is returning to the St. Louis Cardinals on a one-year contract. So that's a little bit of a surprise there. But we shall see if I was a little surprised Adam Wainwright didn't simply retire after this year. He's definitely been hurt the last few years. And I don't know if things will be any better in 2020. So 2019, excuse me. So we'll see if Wainwright can stay healthy, or if we'll see if Adam Wainwright becomes a reliever here in this upcoming offseason. We've also had 4 managers lose their jobs. Mike Scioscia out as manager of the Los Angeles Angels. That one was no surprise. It's looking like Eric Chavez is the likely candidate to replace Scioscia. But it's looking like Scioscia will simply just retire. So I don't think Scioscia is going to manage anymore. So we shall see who replaces him there. And also another no-brainer, John Gibbons let go by the Toronto Blue Jays. They are definitely looking for an analytics manager in Toronto, as they are kind of stuck between a retool and a rebuild. Certainly a lot more questions and answers, as the big question coming up this offseason for Toronto is, do they maybe trade Marcus Stroman somewhere? Stroman was hurt this last season. His ERA wasn't great. Hasn't been great the last couple seasons. So certainly, Stroman's value's kind of dropped off a bit, but I think he still could get a decent return in the offseason if Toronto were to pursue the idea of trading Marcus Stroman in winter meetings. Marcus Stroman out. Another manager out, and this was another no-brainer, is Buck Showalter and Dan Duquette were let go by the Baltimore Orioles after losing 110-plus games. No surprise there. I think they're looking for a manager who's going to oversee the rebuild. And another manager and this one's more of a surprise on who I think's getting fired is, but yeah, they're looking for the next, as Baltimore is definitely tearing it down to the bolts this offseason. And we'll see if Dylan Bundy gets shopped or not, and it's going to be a long rebuild in Baltimore. Duquette let go too, so we'll see if this is Dan Duquette's last go as a general manager. We shall see there. And then the other manager who was surprisingly fired was Paul Molitor after a disappointing season for Minnesota. Paul Molitor let go, I think, with 1 year left on his contract. But it's looking like also with Minnesota, there's a good chance that Joe Mauer will not be back in Minnesota next year. What could be a rebuild? They could look to shop Kyle Gibson in winter meetings. They could look to build this rotation around Barrios, another guy who could be on the trading block in Minnesota. Could be Irvin Santana. So definitely a lot of things to consider in Minnesota. I think Eduardo Escobar won't be back. Dozier's already gone, but yeah, Eduardo Escobar is likely not coming back. I think Irvin Santana is likely going to be traded, so it's looking like they'll go with Hildenberger, Trevor May, Taylor Rogers. I also think Jake Odorizzi could be on the trading block in winter meetings. But we shall see what happens with Minnesota. Definitely looking more like they're going to go the more of a route of maybe a retool rebuild situation in Minnesota. Definitely though, good managerial vacancy. Definitely shown some promise the last couple seasons. As for Paul Molitor, he's definitely a guy who could maybe take a year off, recharge his batteries. He could certainly be up for one of the other managerial vacancies next year. We'll see what happens with him. Now on to the Giants. What's going to happen this offseason? Well, there's certainly a lot more questions than answers coming for the Giants here in this. What I think is going to be an interesting offseason here. Larry Baer has stated he will not rebuild. That's not the right way to go. I think they really should not look to acquire any more help at this, acquire any more talent. I don't know, they can't really tear it down to the bolts, but they definitely need to really think about the future of this team and the direction the Giants are going. They could, of course, foolishly go after Bryce Harper. I would not. He's not worth what he wants. Second of all, his agent is Scott Boras. I am definitely not a fan of Scott Boras. So certainly a lot of uncertainty there. And then, of course, Bochy, I think this is likely his last, 19 is going to be his last season. Unless the Giants are contending next year. I think it's all but certain that this Bochy is going to be a lame duck manager next year. And I think they will probably part ways with Bochy after the 2019 season. And whoever does become the new general manager will be tasked next year of making a managerial hire. And everybody's kind of looking at Hensley Mullins as possibly a managerial candidate for a couple of teams. And honestly, as much as people speculate that Mullins could replace Bochy in 2020, if 2019 is more of the same, and I think it could be, we could see, I really think the Giants are going to have to look outside for the next managerial hire. But I hope Bochy can just have fun next year. But this team's going to look a lot different. I definitely think it's going to look a whole lot different after as we could have a lot of decisions to make. So let's start going with the arbitration eligible players. And here's who's arbitration eligible, Joe Panic. I think he's done good enough in September. He could definitely get tendered. I think it would be better than, say, signing Brian Dozier or DJ LeMahieu. And at the very least, try to get Joe Panic's trade value up a bit next year. So certainly one you could. So I think Panic definitely is going to get tendered. Hunter Strickland. Early in the year, I thought maybe he could be the Giants' face of the franchise at closer. Then, of course, he did the selfish shit here in the middle of the season, punching into a wall and breaking his hand. Strickland's velocity never recovered since getting hurt. I now think Strickland's not coming back next year. I don't think he gets tendered. And definitely it won't hurt my feelings. Hunter Strickland's too much of a hothead. He's just too much of a selfish player. I think he has burned his bridges. And I think with Strickland, he does not get tendered. It's time to move on from Hunter Strickland. Sam Dyson, another one that's arbitration eligible. He found himself by the end of the season really falling out of the late innings role. I don't see him getting tendered. I just think it would be too much money for him to be a middle innings reliever. So I think Dyson does not get. I think Dyson should have actually been traded before the waiver wire, before the deadline, to be honest. This was one of the September blunders, was not moving Sam Dyson. And I don't see Sam Dyson being back with the Giants next year. And he's got a great sinker ball, but he's just not he fell out of the late innings role this year. So Dyson does not, in my opinion, Dyson does not get tendered. And I don't think he will be back in a Giants jersey. Here's our UFAs under Pence. I don't think he should be back with the Giants next year. I think Pence would be better fit next year. Maybe a reunion with Houston. Maybe go play for the A's in a deep. But he might be better off playing in the American League next year in a DH role. Definitely, Pence can't play outfield anymore. He's too hurt. But Pence could certainly fill a role of a DH in the American League, I think. And that's where Hunter Pence's role is going to be next year. Nick Hundley, he comes back on a short-term contract, especially with the uncertainty of Buster Posey being back in time for the 2019 season. Certainly Posey, and of course you're going to have Aramis Garcia certainly competing for one of the last spots on the 25-man roster in spring training next year. If he can get that strikeout rate down a skosh, I think we could see we could plausibly see three catchers on the Giants roster, on the 25-man roster in 2019. Gregor Blanco, I don't know if he comes back. He's not coming back next year. I don't know if I think he could simply retire after this year. Blanco, another one who's part of the World Series run. I think he's gone. Derek Holland, he comes back. He definitely comes back on a 1 to 2 year contract. Certainly, Holland was a great rehabilitation project for the Giants. He should not be too expensive to re-sign. He definitely could be that 4 or 5 man next year, especially with the uncertainty of Madison Bumgarner being with the Giants next year. I would definitely bring back Derek Holland on a short-term contract. And here we go. 2 guys who I think could be traded in this year's winter meetings. Madison Bumgarner. Yes, I certainly think Bumgarner. I think that whoever takes over as the new GM, That is the big question. To trade or not to trade Bumgarner. And, he's won 3 rings for us. He's done a lot of good for the Giants. As much as I'd like to see him a Giant for life, I think that there's not a lot of other players you can get maximum return for. And yeah, Bumgarner's return's not going to be as much as he'd maybe gotten a couple of seasons ago. But I would explore a Bumgarner trade somewhere. I don't know if bringing him back would be the best of. I think they're hinting that Bumgarner is going to be. The Giants are looking like they are possibly going to be open for business this offseason of trading somebody of a caliber of Bumgarner. And I think moving on from Bumgarner might be the best path forward for the Giants, as I don't think they are going to contend in 2019. There's just too many holes on this team. The farm's not great. It might be time to get what you can get from Madison Bumgarner. Let teams try to maximize his return in winter meetings. And then, of course, Brandon Belt, who certainly is going to be expendable. Posey will likely will be restricted on the number of starts he will be in the squad next year. But Posey's long-term future is not at catcher anymore. You've got Joey Bart, who will be in San Jose. We will definitely be paying attention to the progress of Joey Bart in the minors next year. So that definitely means Brandon Belt is going to be on his way out. Problem is, he's been hurt the last couple seasons. Arizona now might put Paul Goldschmidt on the trading block, so Belt's trade value just went down. And the one trade partner I could identify might go for Goldschmidt now instead of Belt. And this is tough. I think teams are going to be reluctant to trade for a player just coming off of surgery. He definitely can hit some dingers. I think if he were to play outside of AT&T Park, he could hit 25 to 35 home runs. But I think for Brandon Belt, the Giants may find themselves in a situation where they could be stuck retaining salary to trade Belt. It could get that ugly. The trade market may not be that great for Brandon Belt, or he could find himself playing more in the outfield next year. And I think those are 2 real possibilities. Either they retain salary or Belt shifts to the left field next year. And that might even be better than overpaying for Bryce Harper, A.J. Pollock, Michael Brantley. But outfield's not in too terrible shape next year. You're going to have Steven Duggar back. Maybe Austin Slater becomes your full-time right fielder next year. I think this is going to be a pretty young team. But for Belt, I just don't know if they are going to be able to find a suitable trade partner for him. And his contract is almost getting as bad as Evan Longoria. But these are things that the successor for Bobby Evans' successor is really going to have to take into consideration as we are now in the offseason. What's going to happen between now and then, we don't know. But we know there's a lot more questions than answers coming in. Things may get worse before they get better. But I think pitching-wise, the Giants are going to be all right. You got Derek Rodriguez coming back. He could certainly be the ace next year. He could be your number 1 starter. Andy Suarez, you could also you can make do with Chris Stratton. He's maybe not your most consistent starter, but I think he can get you some innings. You could possibly say you trade Bumgarner to the Yankees, maybe bring back Sonny Gray. So that could be a situation there where this could be a good project. And Sonny Gray, he definitely does have some experience with Kurt Young. And I think Gray could definitely be a guy who could benefit from pitching at AT&T Park. So maybe trading Bumgarner for Gray could be, and Sonny Gray and some prospects could be the route the Giants could go here. Or you could say sign a guy like Lance Lynn or Garrett Richards, some sort of rehabilitation project on a minor league contract to fill at the back end of the rotation. Certainly, you could look for fines in the Rule 5 draft. That's definitely something the Giants could look at. Bullpen wise, Ray Black, we'll see how he does in a full offseason. Black had his moments, I think but he's definitely got good stuff, and we'll see how he does in a full season in the show next year. I think other guys in the minors who will not be back will be Orlando Calixte. Josh Osich is going to be gone. Stephen O'Kurt, he did well enough here in September that I think he could definitely we could see how he does in spring training, but O'Kurt could definitely now crack the 25-man roster. You've got Ty Block. Casey Kelly could be another guy that could potentially, maybe he's done okay enough that maybe you can use Casey Kelly in a swingman role next year. That's certainly a possibility. But I think a guy they are definitely going to lose in the Rule 5 draft is going to be Tyler Rogers. It's a real shame that they did not bring him up for the September call-ups. He definitely had some good stuff in Sacramento this last year, but I think certainly Tyler Rogers is definitely going to end up on a major league roster somewhere. It's kind of a shame the Giants let him go for nothing. That is a real shame. And then you've got guys, two kids in the Sean Anderson. He could be up with the Giants by the end of next season. Tyler Herb's another one. If he can get it together next year, he could certainly be in the mix to maybe making the Giants rotation out of spring training. We'll see. But we shall see how some of these kids do in Fall League, as that is coming up. But now it is officially the off season. I will be back on once we get to the World Series. But we'll definitely be on air. We'll do some off season shows now that I'm connected again. Now that I'm connected to Wi-Fi, so I'm definitely going to be around. That is for sure. And definitely, though, we're going to be going through an off season of a lot of uncertainty, and we shall see what it brings here. But we will see. I will see you guys again at some point. Everybody have a good day. But I just wanted to get on the air and say hello. Thanks for tuning in for this year. I won't be on as much as we are now in the off season, but I will still be around to record from time to time. Maybe not every week, but when there's big Giants news or something imminent pops up or a trade, I'll definitely be back on. We'll talk baseball, especially as we get closer to winter meetings and stuff. And we'll definitely do a free agent series show once the World Series wraps up. Thanks for tuning in. Everybody have a great weekend and have a good day.